All right, lovely. Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to today's webinar brought to you by Manchester Digital. Thanks very much for joining us. This is actually our second event in our series of Tech Bites. And today's webinar is how to validate your customers' feelings using market research. So sorry, I'm Kate. I'm the Partnership Manager at Manchester Digital. And Tech Bites are relatively new events for us. They are super short, condensed webinars that we have come up with to support our startup community. And it's to foster learning and collaboration between our members. So today we're going to cram a lot in. We've got just 20 minutes. We'll make sure we've got some time at the end for questions. So you can either pop those in the chat or you can turn your camera on. So I am delighted today to introduce our speakers from Omnisys. We have Hannah, who's their marketing manager. She's also a freelance marketeer and PR. And we've got Brian Cooper, who's their MD, both of which are experts in validating customer feelings. So they're going to talk to us today about 3 actionable steps. And hopefully you'll be able to implement them into your business, and they're going to support customer retention. So over to you, Hannah.
Perfect, cool. I will just share my screen. Let me know if it works properly. Oh, this is what I want. So, thank you everyone for giving up your time this morning to come onto this talk and to listen to me ramble on at you for 20 minutes. I've not done any public speaking now for, gosh, about 5 years, so please bear with me. I know this is only a Zoom presentation, but I still feel unjustifiably nervous. So I'm going to be talking to you today about how you can validate your customers' feelings using market research. And there's a number of sort of free, easy, accessible ways that we can do that. But I'm Hannah, I'm the marketing manager. I'm joined by Brian, who's our managing director. Just so you're aware, the criteria I've given Brian is to help me with the questions at the end. So please don't think that I'm being incredibly rude by doing this whole talk on my own and not letting him speak at all. It was actually pre-planned that way. So we're a market research agency. We're based in Ancoats in Manchester. We specialise in operations support for other market research agencies, and we've also sort of dipped our toes in some political polling of late for a client as well. So what we're going to cover today is 3 cost-effective ways to conduct market research in your business to help you to best serve your customers or clients. Now, I do think there's kind of a bit of a misconception around market research, particularly with smaller businesses, in that it's sort of viewed as this kind of big, ominous sounding thing that can be quite intimidating. You might think that you need a lot of time or money or resources to get started with market research, but actually that's not the case at all. And today I'm going to kind of show you in this presentation a couple of ways that you can get started and implement market research, you know, straight away. So, oh, I have to click, not press my spacebar, who knew? So, starting off with a nice picture of one of my favourite fictional characters, and the point of this is that you don't want to get stuck in the echo chamber of your own business. So when you are too close to your own business, oftentimes your ego can get in the way, and we start to assume that we automatically, you know, we know our target audience, we know our customers, we know exactly what they want, you know, and it's really important to look at things critically and conduct market research so that you can actually understand what your clients want and what they need. Otherwise, you end up in this situation where you're awarding yourself, you know, world's best boss mugs and other accolades, when actually there's probably things that you could be doing better to serve your customers. So market research, in its essence, can help you to anticipate any teething issues of your product or service, further refine and improve your product or service to help it become the best it can be, and ultimately save you time, money, energy, and resources, which we can all use. But there's just one problem. Your market research budget probably looks a little something like this. Now, if that's the case, do not worry at all. No matter how small or big your business is, obviously prices is going to have a huge impact on budgets across the board, whether that's marketing, market research, resourcing. So don't worry, because I'm going to show you some free methods that you can get started today that aren't going to cost you any money at all. So the first method that I think is a wildly underrated tool in general, I will sing the praises of email marketing to anyone who will listen. It's an amazing tool to keep in touch with your customers, but to generate sales. So it's a really good way that you can actually do market research. So one of the best ways you can understand how your customers feel about your business is very simple. It sounds very reductive, but simply ask them. Give them the opportunity to give you some feedback, and that way you can really understand what it is that they're trying to portray to you. So if there's one thing that I've learned in my life and career, it's that everyone loves being asked their opinion on things. So take advantage of this, and create like a short customer satisfaction survey or a feedback survey, and ask your customers directly, what are we doing well? Like, what could we do better? What is it that's stopping you from purchasing from me again? Was the sales process easy? Did it make you want to be a repeat customer? Like, there's such a great opportunity for you to ask questions. If you sell products or services, it is legal for you to add customer email addresses to your marketing mailing list. However, you must give them the opportunity to clearly opt out from marketing emails on every single email that you send. And this is really important because it means that you'll be GDPR compliant. So the best way to gather customer feedback via email is inviting them to take part in a short customer satisfaction survey. So my top tips for creating a customer satisfaction survey are this is going to be a key theme in the other methods, but incentivize your audience by giving them something in return. Time is precious. People rarely want to give their time away for free. And all you have to do for this, you don't necessarily need to offer anything that's going to cost you a lot of money, but one of the best ways, and one of the ways I'm sure you would have seen multiple businesses doing if you've ever bought anything from an e-commerce store, is to, offer 10 £10 gift vouchers to people who will take part in the survey. Just something little like that just helps to give people that push to think, oh, and also specify that it's not going to take them a lot of time to do it, 5 minutes or less. Because if it's any longer, if it's too in depth, people are just going to be like, I can't be bothered. So if you add them into a prize draw for 100 people to win a £10 voucher, that's actually a lot better. So giving away 100 £10 gift vouchers is much better than giving away 10 £100 gift vouchers, which is all to do with the probability of winning. Studies have shown that people are more likely to take part in things if there are lots of smaller prizes versus one bigger prize, because they think they're more likely to win. Don't make the survey too long or convoluted. As I mentioned, people's attention spans are incredibly low, myself included. I can blink and accidentally waste an hour of my life watching cute animal videos on TikTok. I'm sure I'm not the only one. So when you're doing anything marketing wise or market research wise, make sure that you make it short and concise, which is actually in a way a lot more challenging than making something longer and more in depth. So also, I recommend asking someone outside of the business to check it for wording, bias, and errors. Again, when you're too involved in the business, you can't see it clearly. You really need someone external to just have a look, say, look, I've written this 5-question survey, this 10-question survey, what do you think? Are there any leading questions? Is it particularly biased? Are there errors? Are there spelling errors? Are there things that are going to reflect badly on my business and look unprofessional? That could be as simple as, your partner, your friend, a colleague, an ex-colleague, find anyone to just run through the questions and just check it to make sure that, it also makes sense for them. And also, you can consider making the answers anonymous. If you really want truly brutally honest feedback, I would recommend making the answers anonymous. Sometimes there are going to be things that you'll read that are perhaps not nice to hear, but ultimately, it's going to help you in the long run. If there's a process within your sales process that is particularly convoluted, it really turns people off. It means that you lose leads, you lose customers. It's worth finding that out. So yeah, making it anonymous is not for the faint-hearted, but it's something that I would recommend. So the second method that we can use that is free is using social media. So I've popped a few social media icons here. I'm sure that you may use all of these, you may use none of these, you may use a selection or some that aren't even on the screen. But again, social media is a really, really good way to gather market research about your customers, or at least about people who already have an interest in what you do, because presumably if they're following you on social media, they are interested. If they're not already a customer, they're hopefully going to be a potential customer in the future. So it's a really good opportunity for you to ask them some questions there. So some social media platforms are a bit more limited than others when it comes to market research, but Instagram in particular is a really good tool for gathering feedback. So on Instagram, you have two tools within the Instagram Stories feature that are both really, really helpful for market research. And it's funny because a lot of people will use these tools and they might not even necessarily think that they are doing market research, but essentially that is what they're doing. So on the left, we have the question and answer function. So on here, you could ask a question about um, how could we improve our service? Um, the only problem is when you click on the type something, the person who's typing, they're limited to sort of about 2 or 3 lines. You have to be very concise, or you have the option of going back, like submitting that answer and then going back and doing like a second part to the answer. But obviously that does get a bit hard to track. So that's the only downside of that feature. But you can use that feature to ask your audience things like, how could we improve our service? So all the answers that you get will be collated over a 24-hour period, and you can even reshare them to your stories with a response if you would like to reply to people individually. So just bear in mind that the answers people give are not anonymous, which may affect what people say. And you also have the poll function on the right. So on the right, we have the polling function where you can change what the question is. You can also, it doesn't have to be a yes no answer. People do a very annoying thing where they will do a poll and they'll put like yes, 100% yes, which I just think is pointless and silly. But I mean, people love to do that. But I would not recommend that. I would recommend doing an actual poll that's going to find you either one answer or the other, not essentially 2 options of the same answer. So the poll function is an anonymous way for your audience to give you feedback between 2 different options. So for example, you could ask them, have you bought from us before? Yes or no. Were you happy with the product service? Yes or no. And then you can follow up with the function on the left, which is the question and answer box. And you can say, if you answered no to the last question, so if they were happy with the service, please can you tell us why? So again, there you can get some really valuable data, in a very easy, accessible way. So these are 2 effective tools that you can use to get quick, easy feedback and find out what your audience really thinks about your offering. The final method is in-person focus groups. Now, in the after age of COVID, if the thought of being around more than 4 people at once makes you feel somewhat like this GIF, don't worry, I can relate. In-person focus groups are an amazing tool to gather feedback from your customers on a variety of different things. However, I'm just going to move slides. It's very distracting. The only downside of in-person focus groups is that they are generally more suited to entrepreneurs. That's not the right word, to extroverts. So I actually did an in-person focus group when I was a student and strapped for cash and needed some money. And it was actually for like a really big outdoors company. And they were basically asking for feedback on some new designs and some new graphic design, sort of logo spreadsheets, I guess. And I was there for maybe an hour. I think I got like 50 quid at the end of it. But for them, that was a really good way for them to gather feedback from people on these new designs, and it worked really well. So before COVID, in-person focus groups were obviously a lot more common, but they are still an excellent way to find out how your customers feel. Again, I would always offer an incentive to take part, whether that's, £50 or a £50 gift voucher. And what you need to do is basically invite sort of 5 to 10 customers together in a group scenario and ask them really targeted questions. Do it over 1 to 2 hours. Do not make it super, super long because, again, the attention span issue. People are not going to be, they're going to be less likely to give up their time if they know they have to give up, 4 or 5 hours of their time. So if you can make it shorter, that's always beneficial. This is a really, really important point. Consider hiring a facilitator to host the event rather than someone in your organization. The reason for this is that people are not necessarily, your business is your baby. This is something that you have grown and developed since birth, essentially. And obviously, you're going to be very, very invested in it. So it's going to be hard for you to facilitate an in-person focus group where people, they might be criticizing you. They might be saying things you don't want to hear. So that's why I would always recommend hiring a facilitator. Many market researchers do work freelance, so you could easily sort of hire someone to do that for you, and they will essentially be able to facilitate the in-person focus group in a way, much more impartial way than you would probably be able to do it yourself. Another downside of this method is that you're sort of limited geographically to the people that are within a radius of wherever you plan to host the workshop or the focus group, which means that you might not necessarily be able to get the profiling of customers that you want because you're limited geographically. Also in the focus group, you should spend time doing brainstorming exercises, product concept feedback, or feedback on designs, or sort of anything specific that you want to find out from your customers. It's also, it's a really good method to use if you're looking for feedback on something specific. I know I mentioned that I obviously went and did the one about branding. That's a really good example of something where an in-person focus group would be really beneficial. You can get people together, you can ask them in-depth questions, you can monitor the dialogue between people, see what people are saying, like gather feedback that way. It is a really, really good method to use. So to conclude, when we are conducting market research to validate or invalidate, as it may be, our customers' feelings, you need to consider things like, what is it vital that I know in order to best serve my customers or clients? So whenever you are writing questions for a survey, you really need to think about, what is it that I'm trying to find out? There's no point wasting valuable survey questions on things that ultimately are not going to get you what you're trying to discover. But that's also why it's important to kind of get someone independent to review it, so you're not asking leading questions and also being biased in your questioning. So, something that you might want to find out is it easy to buy our product or service? Are there any sort of hiccups or sort of areas of friction where people are dropping off the sales process? We are not converting leads, we're not converting clients because this one thing, is not working that well. And that's one way that market research can ultimately, save you a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of resources in the long run if you can find out what that is and obviously put things in place to, to deal with it. So does our product or service run smoothly for customers? How could we make it better? And I think that's one of the key things here. You're conducting market research because you want to make things better. And that's really important. Even if things are working well, there's always things that you could be doing better. And, I think it's a good way to make customers feel valued as well. If you're asking for their opinion, it shows that the company is more bothered. They're bothered about the customer experience as opposed to just making sales. I know that ultimately, we need money to live, but it's also important to, try and make that experience as good as possible for your customers or your clients. So another thing you could try to find out is, is our sales process effective? What is stopping customers from buying from us again? You might have a business where you have loads of sales through the door, but you don't have many repeat customers, but you would like that. So this could be a really good way for you to find out, how to do that. Make sure any of your surveys are short and sweet. As I mentioned, people just will not engage with super long surveys. If anyone has ever gone down the route of, again, this is something I did when I was a student, but, signing up to complete these surveys and you'll get X, Y, and Z, the minute that I got one that was longer than about 10 minutes, I was just not interested. So yeah, short and sweet is always the best. And don't just ask for feedback once, don't just do a bit of market research, a bit of customer feedback, and do it once and be like, okay, great, we'll change this thing. You need to do this continually because ultimately things are changing in businesses all the time. Things are very fluid. If you want to find out on a consistent level, be that every 3 months, every 6 months, every year, what are our customers feeling like? And that way you can also monitor the results and see how things have changed over time, which again is a really powerful sort of analytics tool that you can use. So it's better to ask 2 short surveys a month apart than asking for 1 long survey. So to conclude, market research should hopefully help you to stop feeling as though you're scrabbling around in the dark. Find out exactly what your customers want. Find out how they perceive you as well. That's really important. Finding out how they perceive you in relation to your competitors or in relation to the market in general is something that's going to be hugely beneficial for you. discover what you're doing well and what you can improve on, and ultimately make more money, improve customers' experiences, and grow your business to new heights. And that is it. Right. I'm going to stop presenting now, so I
Thanks,
can
Heather. That was
see my
great.
screen and see everyone that's talking to me, because it's very disconcerting talking to a screen and not being able to see anyone. So bear with me 1 second. I'm going to stop presenting.
That's great, Hannah. We've had a couple of questions come through on the chat, but if anybody would like to, well, you don't have to put your camera on, but feel free to ask a question. You can just pop your audio on if you'd prefer to do that. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I thought it was great that it was actually, they were all kind of, free, which essentially is a massive priority to any startup at the moment. And also, I guess it's quite important to ensure that you're not doing the same thing all the time, because I suppose it could be perceived as kind of noise to customers as well if they're constantly just getting emails from you saying, what do you think of our service? So it's quite nice to mix it up, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It needs to be targeted, don't just send them for the sake of it. You need to have a
Yeah,
very specific idea in mind of, what do I want to find out? How is this going to benefit my business, rather than just, doing it as a sort of ego stroking
yeah,
activity where you just want to be like, oh, I want to be told all the things I'm doing well. Like, ultimately, there does need to be, a point and a sort of a strategy behind it,
yeah.
rather than just,
Well,
doing
that
everything
kind
for the
of
sake of it.
leads on to it's one of the questions, really, because around so somebody's asked here, how should we prioritize answers? So if we've completed a survey, I guess the question is, how do we prioritize on some of those findings on which to implement into the business?
See, I'll sort of jump in on that one. That's an interesting question, because it depends on the audience that you've asked in the first place. Now, if you're a startup, you haven't really got a customer base that you're asking the questions to initially. So the kind of people that you're probably trying to interview is the marketplace of your client competitors, I suppose. So you're not really looking to interview customers that you've already got. So you're trying to interview customers of people that you're trying to bring in. So I suppose what you've got to do is sort of like isolate your target market, try and find out who it is that you're trying to sort of gain customers from, whether the size of that organization is somebody that you can easily target. What's your USP, and attempt to find out what it is that you can offer those customers, that in terms of, whether it's your product has something that those current suppliers don't have, whether your product is cheaper, whether your sales process is easier, whether it's your delivery process. You've got to have something that you're bringing to the marketplace that those people currently don't have, and then try and find out what it is that you can offer them that they will move to you. So your questioning has got to be sort of like targeted towards that. It's very specific to the marketplace and what it is that you're doing, whether it's a service-led industry, whether it's a product-led industry, manufacturing. So it's not an easy one to be able to just answer in this environment. I can't just say, yes, this is the type of thing that you can answer, the type of questions that you can put in there. It all does depend on what it is as an industry that you're aiming to do. Just looking at the other questions that we've got, sort of, how should we prioritize what market research to do if we're an early stage startup? An early stage startup, what you've got to do is find out whether you've actually got a product that people want, whether you've got a service that people want. But I guess if you're already at a startup stage, you've got people that you know that are interested in your product. The key thing is to get a marketplace that have got so it comes down to that USP again. If you've got something that you're bringing out that is different to what is currently out there, it's showcasing that, it's letting people see what that is, you know, whether that's a demonstration of that product, which you can do via a survey as well. You can show people what it is that you've got, whether that's a new product design, whether it's just explaining what that product might be via a video. You know, there's all kinds of different ways that you can actually do that. And if you haven't already got a customer base that you can interview, you can go to what we call access panels, where you can find consumers that you know already access these particular products and say, this is a potential new entrant to the marketplace. How interested would you be in using this particular product? If you've used something, or if you've bought a particular product in the last 6 months, and if a new product came onto the market, how interested would you be in trying that if it had this new feature, or if it was at this new price point? And so that's
really interesting, because I wasn't aware that you could do that. But I suppose what you're saying is that you would 100% suggest that people are doing this market research before they launch any business. You know, market research.
You would absolutely have to. I mean, yeah. If you don't, if you've got an idea, say, of a new product, and if you haven't tested that with the marketplace before you've produced that product, then you're potentially throwing away tens of millions of pounds on production, not knowing if somebody's actually going to buy that.
I think it goes back again to what I said about not scrabbling around in the dark, and that's exactly what that would be doing. You know, if you're just like, oh, well, I have this problem, and I think other people might do, but you haven't actually done any market research and you just develop it, you know, it's a huge risk, huge potential, as Brian said, waste of time and money and resources. Yeah.
I mean, I can give you a good example of a project that we did a few years ago for Coca-Cola, and they brought out, or they were thinking of bringing a new design for Fanta, and it was a new bottle design, and they'd actually spent, I can't remember what but it was a ridiculous amount of money on producing a new bottle design. They'd done the manufacturing, they'd produced something which, when you held it, didn't fit comfortably in somebody's hand. So they'd already produced the machines, they'd done whatever they'd had to done to do all the retooling before they'd done any research. When they eventually came around to do the research, and they'd found, see what Hannah had been talking about before, people doing the sort of like what we call in-hall testing. So they'll bring a bunch of people in and they'll sit them down and they say, right, here's a new product, can you try it? And people were holding onto these bottles, and straight away they were saying, this is the most uncomfortable thing that I've tried to drink from. And they'd already spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on retooling these machines and had to scrap it all because they'd not tested it with the people first. So this is, you know, this is a multinational, multi-billion-pound organization. And because somebody within the organization had said, I like the look of this hand-drawn design, and say, you know, we're just going to run with this. It looks fantastic. And it did. It looked fantastic. But the ergonomics of it was terrible. So they'd wasted all this money on producing something which nobody wanted. So there's all these things that you presume are just going to work fine, until you actually put it in the hands of a consumer. You don't know. And somebody will tell you, yeah, that's amazing. And I suppose even in a big organization, you'll have people that are just yes people, and they'll say, oh yeah, that's going to work, that's going to be amazing.
It's quite refreshing, isn't it, to know that corporate giants make such epic
It-
mistakes as well. Something slightly satisfying in that. Well, we are about to finish, but I'm just conscious we could just get a couple of these other little questions in here. I know we've got a question just saying for startups, what's the best platform to, oh, the question just jumped there, platform to collect info on prospects?
Again, see, this depends on whether you're marketing to consumers or to a business-to-business organization. So if you're trying to find out information prospects that are consumers, then, you know, we can advise on that. I'm not just selling ourselves as a company, but there's lots of market research organizations that will be able to tell you. You can design a survey and go out to, say, these panels which have access to millions of consumers, which as soon as you find out who it is that you're trying to sell to, then they can advise you on the best way to access those consumers to find out what they feel about your particular product. So there's always ways to be able to access these consumers. Business to business is slightly harder and more expensive, obviously. But if anybody's, we're always open to give free advice on these things, especially to startups, because we know how difficult it is. We were there, 20 years ago in that same position. Even market research companies have to do their own research to try and find out how to, get forward in the market. If anybody wants to, come to us and ask for advice on how their particular company needs to get some advice, we're more than happy to sort of give that. Like I was saying before,
as we're kind of just out of time there, and I'm just aware that people might be needing to jump off. I think that is brilliant to know. I know that there's a couple of people on there that might like to pick up with you separately. And if you're okay, we'll certainly, we can share this presentation, can't we? And we can share your contact details, both Hannah and Brian.
Absolutely. Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah, pick up directly with.
Now, just say one quick final thing on what Hannah had been saying. If you do any kind of research and you get results back from any of the respondents, especially when it's customer satisfaction, always implement what people have said. Because if they're saying, we're not happy about X, Y, and Z, make sure you fix that. That's one of the key things that you do in any business. If you ask for any kind of input from any of your customers, especially if it's a customer database that you've got, and you ask people, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong as a business? And they give up their time to actually give you that information. If you don't fix it, the next time that you ask that customer for any kind of information, they're going to be furious because you've not fixed the thing that they told you was wrong in the first place.
Well, you don't have that customer anymore.
Yeah. So it's always that. If you ask for advice on something from your clients or for your customers, and they tell you that X is wrong, fix X. First thing, make sure that you always do what they tell you is wrong. Yeah,
I think that's a really solid piece of advice. So thank you both for your time and energy and knowledge today. As we just said, thank you to everybody for coming along today. These are regular events, so please do join us. Look out on Manchester Digital website for more event details. Of course, if you would like any information about joining Manchester Digital as a startup, it's only £50 for startups for 12 months. There's absolutely tons of value. So you can pick up with me. I'm Kate Wilson. You can pick up with me about joining if you'd like to. Or if you're a member and you would like to volunteer yourself as the next Tech Bite speaker, then get in touch with me as well. But thanks to everybody. So we're going to share the information on email. And then if any of you've got any other questions, you can pick them up directly with Hannah and Brian. But thanks again, everybody. We'll hopefully see you very soon.
Okay. Thanks very much, everyone.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.